Come on along, join the caravan. Hear the stories and the songs from 100 different lands. We've got puppets, films and rhymes, tales from once upon a time. There's always a show, rain or shine, just look for the smiling caravan sign. Come on along, join the caravan. Step right up, come right in. The show is about to begin.
Time for bed. I hope that story wasn't too scary for you.
Oh, no, Grandpa.
Not for us.
Well, sleep well.
Would you leave the door open a little?
Or a lot?
Certainly. Good night.
Louie.
What?
I didn't believe that story. Did you?
Of course not. Especially the monster part.
And the screaming part. Do you hear something?
Like what?
Like something coming up the stairs?
It's nothing.
Look at that shadow on the wall. Here it comes.
It's getting bigger.
It's only Leonard.
Boy, are we glad to see you.
Louie.
What?
I think there's something under my bed.
There's nothing under your bed.
How do you know?
I just know.
Take a look.
I'm too tired.
I bet you're afraid to put your feet over the edge.
No, I'm not.
Grandpa!
Well, hello. What seems to be the trouble?
Something was under our beds.
Is that so? Why, the very same thing happened to me once. It was long ago when I was visiting my grandparents. I was about your age, and the house was strange. I was a little bit scared on my way to bed. As I went up the stairs, glittery eyes stared at me through the window.
Those were probably just fireflies, Grandpa.
Well, perhaps you're right. My room was at the end of a long, long hall. I went into my room, put on my pajamas, picked up a book, and read for a while. Suddenly, I realized I'd forgotten to look under the bed. I worked up my nerve and took a peek. It was awful. A creature with wild hair, no head, and a long tail was standing there.
But Grandpa, wasn't that your shoes, your bathrobe, and your hairbrush just where you had left them?
Why, that's just what it was. Now, I got back into bed, and then I heard some horrible sounds. Little creatures on stilts. They went knick-knock, knick-knock.
Grandpa, was there a big grandfather clock in the hall?
Why, yes, there was.
Well, what did it sound like?
Oh, I see what you mean. Well, I closed my eyes. A huge and terrible bird flew in. I could feel its feathers on my face.
Probably not a big bird, Grandpa.
No? Then what could it have been?
A few moths.
Just what it was. But then, outside my window, I heard pirates fighting with swords. Clash, clash.
Probably some cats jumping on garbage cans.
Probably. rats came in. I could hear them fluttering all around me.
Wait a minute.
Yes?
Could it have been the wind fluttering the pages of your book?
Not only could have been, it was.
You should have closed the window.
Just what I did.
All quiet after that?
Yes. Until the ghosts started wailing and moaning.
You should have shut the window tighter.
Right you are. I got up and shut the window tighter.
Safe at last, eh?
Well, I thought so. But then I heard the skeletons climbing up the side of the house. Their bones were creaking as they climbed.
Were you scared, Grandpa?
Indeed, I was.
You shouldn't have been. It was the branches of the tree creaking in the wind.
How did you know? Well, it was getting hot, so I foolishly opened the window again.
Not a good idea?
No, the light blew out.
Were you scared in the dark, Grandpa?
Well, just until I got used to it.
And you felt better?
No, worse. Then I could see what was coming in the window.
Such as?
Oh, goblins, witches, spiders, giants, monsters, dragons, slitherers and creepers, leeches that wriggled, wretches that giggled, peaches that screeched, creatures that reached and pinched and poked and nibbled and dribbled, snapped and stomped and squished, scratches and catches, growlers and howlers, things that were smelly or shaky like jelly. Suddenly, they all started chasing me. I ran out of the door. I could hear something coming after me. I ran from one room to another and down the halls. I ran upstairs and down, and finally, I stopped to rest. I looked behind me, and nothing was there.
So you were safe and sound, Grandpa?
No, that's when they grabbed me.
Who? What?
What?
Well, what seems to be the trouble, lad? We heard you running around. Why, it was only my grandpa and grandma. They thought maybe I was hungry. They gave me a big bowl of strawberry ice cream, and I felt much better.
Do you have any ice cream, Grandpa?
Well, wouldn't hurt to take a look.
Georgie by Robert Bright. In a little village in New England, there was a little house which belonged to Mr. and Mrs. Whitaker. Up in the little attic of this house, there lived a little ghost. His name was Georgie. Every night, at the same time, he gave the loose board on the stairs a little creak. And he gave the parlor door a little squeak. And then Mr. and Mrs. Whitaker knew it was time to go to bed. And Herman, the cat, he knew it was time to prowl. And as for Miss Oliver, the owl, she knew it was time to wake up and say, "Hoo." And so it went, with everything as it should be, until Mr. Whittaker took it into his head to hammer a nail into the loose board on the stairs, and to oil the hinges of the parlor door. And so the stairs wouldn't creak anymore. And the door wouldn't squeak anymore. And Mr. and Mrs. Whittaker, they didn't know when it was time to go to bed anymore. And Herman, he didn't know when it was time to begin to prowl anymore. And as for Miss Oliver, she didn't know when to wake up anymore and went on sleeping. That was a fine how do you do. And Georgie sat up in the attic and moped. Pretty soon, though, Georgie decided to find some other house to haunt. But while he ran to this house and then to that house, each house already had a ghost. The only house in the whole village which didn't have a ghost was Mr. Glomes's place. But that was so awfully gloomy. The big door groaned so. And the big stairway moaned so. And besides, Mr. Glomes himself was such a crotchety old man, he came near frightening Georgie half to death. So Georgie ran away to a cow barn where there lived a harmless cow. She just chewed her cud all the time, and it wasn't much fun. Meanwhile, a lot of time went by, and it rained a good deal. And during the winter, it snowed to beat the band. And out at the cow barn, Georgie was terribly cold and uncomfortable. Ooh. But what with the dampness from the rain and the coldness from the snow, something happened to that board on the Whittaker stairs and to the hinges on the Whittaker parlor door. It was Herman who discovered it and told Miss Oliver, and she woke up with a start. Miss Oliver flew right over to the cow barn to tell Georgie that the board on the stairs was loose again and that the hinges on the parlor door were rusty again. What glad tidings that was for Georgie. He ran right home, lickety-split. And so, at the same old time, the stairs creaked again. And the parlor door squeaked again. And Mr. and Mrs. Whittaker knew when it was time to go to sleep again. And Herman, he knew when to begin to prowl again. And as for Miss Oliver, she knew when it was time to wake up again and say, "Ooh." Thank goodness.
Now I'm going to tell you a very old story. It's called Teeny Tiny and the witch woman. Once there was, and twice there wasn't, a family of 3 brothers. Big one in the middle, and teeny tiny. Every day, their mother said, "You can play anywhere in the village, but do not go into the forest. Your granny says a witch woman lives there, where the trees are darkest. She eats little children and uses their bones to make a fence around her house." One morning, when no one was looking, Big One said, "Let's go into the forest to play." "Yes," agreed in the middle. "I'm not afraid of any old witch woman. Come on, Teeny Tiny." Now, Teeny Tiny didn't want to go, but he went anyway. "I'll keep my eyes open and my legs ready to run," he told himself. Little by little, the shadows grew longer, and Big One in the middle and Teeny Tiny grew hungry. But no matter where they looked, the boys could not find the path to the village. At last, Teeny Tiny climbed a tree to look farther. "I see a light," he called.
Come in, my children.
"Wait," whispered Teeny Tiny. "Remember what our granny said." "Oh, that can't be the witch woman," said Big One. "She's so kind to ask us in." "I'm tired and hungry," said in the middle. "You're just afraid because you're little."
Afraid?
The old woman cackled.
You needn't be afraid of me. I love little children. Come in. Stay with me. Share my dinner. I have room for all of you in my little house tonight. Tomorrow I'll show you your way home. But come now and smell the good dinner I have for you.
What good smells came out of that kettle. "Come on," said Big One. "I'm going inside."
You may call me Auntie.
he could see. Auntie, he asked, what do you keep in that cage?
Cage? In my cage? Oh, sometimes I keep stray dogs. And sometimes I keep stray cats.
And sometimes stray children? Wondered Teeny Tiny.
You must be tired,
said the old woman.
Come now, into the bedroom. Sleep well, and tomorrow, just see if I don't show you your way home.
The moonlight shone down on that knobby white fence. It was made of bones, leg bones, arm bones, little people bones. Teeny Tiny stared at the fence. Then he looked at Big One, and in the middle, already sound asleep. They didn't know, but Teeny Tiny did. This was indeed the house of the witch woman.
Who is awake and who is asleep?
The littlest one is awake.
What, Teeny Tiny? Why don't you sleep?
Well, Auntie, my mother always cooks me an egg before I go to bed. Then I go to sleep. So the old woman cooked an egg. And Teeny Tiny ate it. But still he did not go to sleep. And after a while, the woman called again.
Who is awake and who is asleep?
The littlest one is awake, said Teeny Tiny.
What? Still awake?
Well, Auntie, my mother gives me popcorn and raisins at bedtime. Then I go to sleep. So the old woman brought him popcorn and raisins. But still he did not go to sleep. After a while, she called again.
Who is awake and who is asleep?
The littlest one is awake.
What can I get you to help you sleep?
Auntie, all that popcorn has made me thirsty. At home, when I am thirsty, my mother goes to the well to fetch me water in a sieve. When I drink it, then I go to sleep. As the old woman bent to fetch her sieve, a cake of soap fell out of her apron pocket.
Oh dear, my magic objects. Better to leave them here safe than to lose them outside in the dark by the well.
So she laid the soap, a needle, and a short, sharp knife on a high shelf. Then she opened the door softly and started toward the well. Wake up! Auntie is that witch woman. If we don't hurry, we'll be her dinner tomorrow. I heard her say she'd leave 3 magic objects on the high kitchen shelf. If she says they're magic, they just may be magic. 1, 2, 3, he tucked them into his pocket and ran with his brothers down the moonlit path. As for the old woman, she just couldn't catch any water in the sieve, and she couldn't catch any water in the sieve. Away she went, running after them. As the old woman came closer and closer, Teeny Tiny took out the cake of soap. I'll try this first. Even if it isn't magic, at least she might slip on it.
Oh, you took my magic soap.
Teeny Tiny threw the cake of soap right into her path.
Oh, it's no use. I'll have to run around it. I'll catch you.
Then Teeny Tiny picked the needle out of his pocket. Whether it's magic or not, I'll prick her with this needle,
Oh,
cried the witch woman.
you found my magic needle too.
And suddenly, the needle became many needles, a whole mountain of needles, all prickly and sharp.
It's no use. I must run around them. Now I'll catch you.
She cried. Finally, Teeny Tiny pulled the knife from his pocket. If it isn't magic, at least she may cut her foot on it and we could escape. It's our only chance.
Oh, you took my magic knife too.
That knife cut a crack so long and so wide that the witch woman couldn't run around it and couldn't jump over it.
I'll get you next time.
The three boys didn't stop running until they reached their own home. As for the witch woman, she'll wait a long, long time before she hears a knock at her door again. I remember that story from so many years ago. My own granny told it to me. One day you will tell it too. And so the story goes on and on.
A dark, dark tale. Once upon a time, there was a dark, dark moor. On the moor, there was a dark, dark wood. In the wood, there was a dark, dark house. At the front of the house, there was a dark, dark door. Behind the door, there was a dark, dark hall. In the hall, there were some dark, dark stairs. Up the stairs, there was a dark, dark passage. Across the passage was a dark, dark curtain. Behind the curtain was a dark, dark room. In the room was a dark, dark cupboard. In the cupboard was a dark, dark corner. In the corner was a dark, dark box. And in the box there was a mouse.
Parents, the stories in the Children's Circle series are based on outstanding books for children which you can get from your public library, bookstore, or from CC Studios, Weston, Connecticut, 06883. Please phone 1-800-KIDS-VID. In Connecticut, 1-222-0002.